Bing, 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 and bong, 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 and horses and frosty words, everyone. Welcome to Home Age Conversations, a podcast about the residents. I'm Mole, and I'm seeing the meaning of a dreaming doggy in the dust.
And I'm Mew, and I've laughed and cheered and bought some beers.
I'm Cat, and I'm a Jesus Sweetest.
And I'm Rabbit, and I have no presence in the future.
There is one thing we probably should acknowledge here. At the time of recording, and also undoubtedly by the time of your listening, it is no longer Christmas 2019.
What?
Well, it's always Christmas somewhere in the world.
Instead, this is a Santa Dog episode for your New Year. It's for your Brumalia. And we're gonna act like that's okay. For this episode, we are talking about Santa Dog 78, as a continuation of our ongoing Santa Dog series, in which around the same festive season every year we talk about a new Santa Dog, or a new old Santa Dog that we haven't talked about the previous time. So, what is there to say about Santa Dog 78?
Sounds like duck stab.
I don't think it does. I really don't think it does.
Very
It
minorly,
definitely-
mainly, and I mainly say that because the little electric percussion.
It sounds like it has the instrumentation of these albums and projects that the residents were doing in that time, but
It's not the general idea.
yeah, exactly. But I feel like Santa Dog 78, it was the first like Santa Dog reissue. So this is the first Santa Dog that was actually attributed to the residents.
Yeah.
'Cause the last one was
They covered it.
I mean, the
So-
marketing geniuses that they are, they started to figure out that you can sell old stuff and new stuff together.
because I know we have discussed at length that the residents are artists or whatever, but at the end of the day, what they really are shrewd businessmen.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Or, alternatively, they are amazing, beautiful artists suffering at the hands of shrewd businessmen under the guise of the Cryptic Corporation, which is definitely a company from that is legally registered in Panama as a tax haven.
I'm pretty sure it's shrewd businessmen all the way down.
Perhaps.
Randy Rose went to
Warthog.
Harvard. Shit. Randy Rose went to Harvard for business. You go to Harvard for business, right?
Randy gets a business degree.
I'd watch that episode of Randy.
Randy becomes an entrepreneur.
Randy opens up a small business in his hometown.
Randy invests in stocks.
Randy retires at the ripe age of 70.
Anyway, wait, I was gonna say. I feel like for Santa Dog 78, at this point, the residents, they had like multiple albums under their name, under their label, like Fingerprints, Duck Stab, the other ones.
Meet the residents.
Yeah, I guess. But and at that point, they had moved on from the sort of crude beginnings, if you will. So they almost wanted to be like, hey, we have these like synthesizers, we have we can make music now. I mean,
We learned how to play the saxophone.
Yeah,
We learned
So-
what notes mean what.
exactly.
I
So
don't know
feel
if they
like-
learned that.
Yeah, but I feel like Santa Dog 78 was almost. It was.
It's kind of like
That-
when you do, like when artists do that, like, oh, this is how I drew then, this is how I draw now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually, wow, the residents pioneer. They should copyright that. Shrewd businessmen that they are.
Because we say that, the Santa Dogs sort of are the residents saying, this is how we sound like now. This is who we are now, to sort of show where they've been too. But I feel like Santa Dog 78, that's like especially what it's for. And then it just became a tradition. But Santa Dog 78 is almost, it's almost like screaming, "This is who we are now. Look at how much we've grown."
It's not just a phase, Mom.
Yeah, it's sort of saying, like, we are someone now. Because before, I mean, the original Santa Dog isn't actually attributed to the residents. That was something that was sort of decided years after. Particularly with this, I suppose. But they're gaining a sense of their identity here, that they or their identity or lack thereof, with this record, I think. If only there was something else going on, if only there was some kind of other reflection we could be doing, that was similarly, temporally situated, much like the Santa Dogs. A reflection on, like, the progression of work or something. I don't know. Huh.
Wait, I've got it.
What do you
Oh?
have?
You know how the decade's coming to an end, right?
It
What?
is?
I think it is.
No. I don't think
That
it
being
is.
said, I think it calls for a decade in review.
That's way better than my idea, which was Carly Rae Jepsen talk.
We'll see.
Look
Now
at
my
that.
idea
I
seems
kind
stupid.
of, yeah, no, I kind of like that better. Remember Call Me Maybe? That was a good one.
About major releases and performances, just like Carly Rae Jepsen's Emotion or the Residents' entire discography, except for Constantinople. Let's talk about some of the big things that have happened in the past 10 years. Because wow.
It's weird because when I became a Residents fan in like 2012, 2013 time frame, and even for as long as I've known the Residents, they've sort of organized a lot of their retrospectives in decades. Fans and the Residents alike have kind of grouped their works by decades.
Yeah.
So it's weird now that the 2010s are over, and we can now look back on the 2010s.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
like
it's like-
cohesive themes emerge.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
they do.
Now you can have you have the people who are like, oh yeah, I like their 70s output, I like their 80s output. Now you can have people that say, yeah, I like their 2010s output.
Ugh,
Fun
Yeah,
stuff.
I know.
it's very
When you say
frightening,
it-
this passage
yeah.
of time thing.
Yeah,
I don't
when
like
you
it.
say it like that, it's I don't like it.
It doesn't feel quite real, but maybe in 2 days it will. I mean,
In 2 days,
I
I'm going
think
to be having a mild panic attack over the passage
Well,
of time.
let's join you in that.
Okay.
So talking about mild panic attacks, let's move on to a pretty extreme one, which was that Talking Light tour. What an ambitious project for them! Wow.
I would say that would be a chef's kiss for me.
Oh yes.
They really started off the decade guns a-blazing.
Yes.
That's a saying, right?
Blazing,
I really like the aspect of Talking Light because, like, you know how with the Bunny Boy they did that whole mending of like theatrics and music, right?
Yeah.
I feel like Talking Light was kind of like that, but like a little bit heavier dividing on the music than the theatrics, and it worked a lot better. I'm not saying the Bunny Boy tour was bad, but I'm saying
Bonnie
Talking
doesn't
Light
like the
kind
Bunny
of.
Boy tour.
Oh, I like it.
I don't
Just not
think
as much
so.
as Talking Light.
I mean, Talking Light. What's interesting about that for me is that it's one of the first times we see the Residents actively manifesting in some way the way that they're perceived, right? I mean, actively contending with their lack of identity, and I mean, undoubtedly there are many creative forces pulling them in all sorts of directions, but I mean, when you start to approach the 40-year mark, you sort of want to think differently about how you operate, and maybe do something that is challenging. I mean, Bunny Boy was challenging in its way, but it didn't challenge the fundamental concept of the Residents for a lot of people, I don't think. It's a continuation of sort of what we know about the Residents, and Bunny was like an addition to that. It was sort of like characters on the periphery of the Residents were then brought in. But then Talking Light takes that a step further and applies that same kind of characterization, that anthropomorphism in a way, to the Residents themselves. In what I think is one of their most experimental moves.
I was just gonna say that it's like a play on both the theatrics of the show and their identities.
Yeah. No, for sure.
So speaking of the Bunny Boy, I kind of see the Bunny Boy as almost a, like, because the decades of the Residents are not obviously completely discrete. There's blending and there's just out of place projects, which we'll probably talk about after the 2010s. But I feel like the Bunny Boy is almost like the transition into the 2010s because it has a sort of that online focus, the like multimedia.
The first attempt at what we see later with.
Exactly. So it really feels more in line with the 2010s than the 2000s, but it's sort of in between.
Yeah, and I feel like Bunny Boy in its way is an experiment and they use their findings from that essentially to build up a lot of what they do in the 2010s, because you look at the 2000s and that is considered by a lot of people their storyteller era, and they bring sort of that deep analysis of characters that they're doing in the 90s and in the 2000s. They bring that to bear on themselves, and I appreciate the riskiness of that move, because in bringing back older music to play, like structuring it like a traditional concert, but also giving the Residents identity as Randy, Chuck, and Bob, you're both appealing to the nostalgia and explaining why it's impossible, why reaching back into the past is never gonna work. At least not in the way you expect it to.
That Scott Fitzgerald could never.
Also, they get really dark with Talking Light. I mean, Bunny Boy was dark, but I think they're very everybody knows the Residents talk about darkness with other characters. That's fine, but like now we have Randy, and he's like, man, is going through it.
Yeah, he's going through it. He needs a hug
or something.
Or something, indeed.
And there's probably something to be said symbolically too for the switch of Randy's character during the show. The becoming of the mirror people. Yeah,
we'll talk about that in
the Residents
future
really
Talking Light episode.
With the becoming a mirror person. This is just occurring to me now, but
spoilers.
People have had a decade. They've had a decade to figure it out. Well,
it's also the first in the trilogy, so
it is the first in the trilogy. And there's something to be said for the Residents and their relationship to reflections. You take the classic eyeball motif; they're reflecting you as you look at them. And so the Residents then look at themselves through the mirror, and what is it that they see? What is it that they see?
That's the eternal question. I would imagine. I mean, it all comes back to reflections in the end.
Yeah. Speaking of Residents projects, maybe here we can sort of move on to the next topic. Which
more
sort
Randy,
of,
Chuck, and Bob.
Yeah, more Randy, Chuck, and Bob. Now that they're individuals, it turns out those individual pieces are free to do whatever they want. And the new individual piece that we meet is Charles Bobuck, and he puts out Coochie Break.
More like Carlos, Chuck, and Bob.
I think Coochie Break is like one of my favorite releases of the era. Because I don't know, the way in which like Chuck did solo experimental work. Yes. Holding up the weight of the world, effectively. to break up the residents into these different pieces, but also have them be a part of a unified whole. I'm literally describing like the concept of God in three persons as I'm realizing it. It allows each of those pieces to serve a different purpose, but as Randy would later say, nobody knows what the fuck Bob does. But yeah, like, what are our thoughts on Coochie Break, if we have any?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't speak Spanish. I only speak American.
So there's not really much to say on Coochie Break. It's good.
It's good.
So yeah, on to richer topics of conversation. The second part of the Randy, Chuck, and Bob trilogy. I think it became like the Randy, Chuck, and Bob trilogy with the second part. Wonder of Weird, the 40th anniversary show.
Man, all the Randy, Chuck, and Bob stuff is just so much fun.
I mean, I think we all became Residence fans during this decade, didn't we?
I believe so.
I think we were all children last decade. So, I mean the decade, but the decade before the 2010s.
I was born the decade before that.
Jesus. It's funny, Rabbit, that you said that the story of Bunny Boy was blended in with the theatrics, and that sort of pulled back in Talking Light. But if there's any place where it is in full force, it is here.
Wonder of Weird's minorly scary in a way.
Why? What?
Well, because
Bunny has a crippling fear of Christmas and candy canes and stuff like that. So this has been a rough
beautiful
time of
Christmas
year.
sweaters worn by wonderful composers.
I'm talking about how it goes from him just telling stories to him like just yelling obsession over and over again.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I love it.
I think that's just the Residence for you.
Oh yeah.
That's just the Residence. What it makes me think about is sort of how like people really want identity from the Residence. Like there's people who will very obsessively try to debunk and reveal and make it seem as though they know everything about the Residence that there is to know. But to make them human is to bring along like a bunch of stuff, you know. And in a way, I think this, like, Wonder of Weird is a response to that urge a lot of people have. It's sort of like saying, okay, you want to know who we are? Here you go. And then one is forced to contend with, like, you know, people.
It has an interest, like, the Wonder of Weird in itself, it has kind of an interesting dynamic. Because, like, you have the two guys on the side, and they're not really helping it. They're just kind of there to play the music.
Yeah.
And then Randy's just telling his stories, and it is developing, you know, his little character.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just adding to that whole, like you said, like giving them identities, and then giving them backstories, and having them tell those backstories, and well, we all know what happens to us when
And it's like it's really sad, and it makes me think about how sometimes with like a lot of artists and their work, people try obsessively to connect the work to the individual. You know, they want to see like the causation. They want to see like, okay, how does this person think, and why does it make their music that way? And here, Randy is sort of like the manifestation of all of these different themes running through the Residence work, and personified. And it causes one to think more deeply about, you know, how much do we want to know about the artist? How much does it matter? And how much does it affect how we engage the work?
Which is, I think, which I think all that considered, these questions all being brought up at this era, I think makes it a fitting era for the documentary to have come out in.
Yes, absolutely.
Because while you're being posed with all these, you know, you're being confronted with all these reality questions, you're also being made to, you know, you're getting in part what you want. It's all these, you might not have picked up on it, but your brain did.
I just wanted to say that in my recent watching of bootlegged Wonder of Weird footage, I noticed for the first time that like just periodically, like many times throughout the concert. I didn't notice this the first time because I didn't know what was going on the first time. Randy like goes away to check his cell phone to see like news on Maurice, and like he does that like multiple times throughout the show. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's sort of like a statement by the residents on how timeless their anonymity makes them. Because I think with a lot of groups, what you do get is like, you know, they're simply not what they used to be, because they're static. They're like who they are at one point in time is connected to like who they are as people. And so people can be very cynical about the residents. They're like, oh, they just don't make it like they used to. Well, yeah, that's kind of the point. But
Yeah, in those
you
cases,
like
they
if
don't
you
have to.
yeah, if you're expecting an aging rock star on tour, well, here the residents give it to you. Which is I think part of why like the Randy, Chuck, and Bob trilogy is divisive. It's very divisive.
Is it? I've mainly seen a lot of the divisive like feelings about around the like early 2000s output.
Well, divisive in like a quieter sense, in that like the people that are very passionate about it are very passionate about it, and then like I've read reviews from around the time, and people were like mad. You know, they didn't want stories. They didn't want they didn't want something this involved.
What?
I mean, I've also seen people who are just like, the residents just shouldn't have identities. They should just continue to make art, but like not have identities. Because one of the things about the Randy, Chuck, and Bob trilogy is it really did give the residents identities to a degree.
Ostensibly, yeah.
Like it gave them like the identities weren't. I mean, they are, you know, they are manufactured identities, but they're also.
What identity is not manufactured?
What?
Like, what identity is not manufactured?
Yeah. But they're more manufactured than normal identities, but at the same time, they're still, like, you know, functional identities that you can pick members of the band, which I know some people don't like because that's sort of
Did they think
goes
that
against
was going to last forever?
the residents, like as a anonymous art collective and more as a rock band.
Well,
no,
but of course
I'm
here what we
referring to, like,
yeah.
do they think that this experimentation was going to last forever? Like, has anything? Isn't that kind of the point?
Well, isn't that
Ever-changing.
just the fault of human thinking at any point in time? Things are the way they are right now, and they will be that way forever.
You know, that's kind of what Frozen 2 was about, you know, so...
Well, I don't know, and I don't want to find out.
Let's make this a podcast about Frozen.
About Frozen 2, yeah,
Here's
all of
the
our
thing,
episodes.
I think that Frozen 2's plot basically invalidated Elsa's arc in the first film.
So anyway, I mean the residents. The thing is here, they did sort of give themselves a loophole in that this isn't technically the residents. It's a residents cover band, the world's best, in fact. Yeah, I mean some people just want to hear Lizard Lady on a CD. They just want to hear you play that from a CD. One thing I really like about Wonder of Weird is that they reach deep into their discography. That's one of the most standout things about this show for me is they play things live that, like, one, we ignored in the first place, and two, they make them, like, really, really good. I mean, you know, that cover of that one
What was it?
that one track off of the Gingerbread Man.
I forgot. Yeah.
Let's see.
My
The
tongue
Causational
tied.
Transient.
Yes, that one.
I mean, it like drags you. their evolution as a group is made so clear there. The fact that that's even the same song, is really delightful to see that they can produce really interesting stuff out of anything, you know.
Yeah, and the version of Jelly Jack is one of my favorite songs on the planet.
Jello Jack is the Santa dog of the rest of the Residents' discography.
Ooh, it really is. And the Wonder of Weird version, and also the version that also comes later in the decade. They are wonderful versions of that wonderful song. Oh yeah, and also during the Wonder of Weird, they also bring the sort of like what's it called? Our Finest Flowers type mashups.
Yes. Oh god.
Into their set list, which they really didn't do in any other tours, like they did. And I wish they did more mashups, because it's very interesting to hear sort of unrelated songs go together.
They're really smooth too. I really like that.
Yeah,
It
like
seems
they.
like if you weren't to know like the source material, you could probably think they were originally the same song.
Yeah.
I mean,
they make it work.
They did play Constantinople during this tour, technically.
Kind.
Lol. I suppose. And also the way that they the way people hold them up to, I think, their older works, as though that was some sort of golden era. The Residents are in a conversation with their fans, and here's where it starts to
conversation.
Yeah, like a home-age conversation. But you see that in their Marching to the Sea cover here. You know, we will die pretending to be a band. They're so self-aware.
The first time I heard that, I felt like my bones were just being, like, you know when people say shook? It was like that. Like every bone in my body was quivering.
It's like getting hit in the face with a sandblaster.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like with Wonder of Weird, like, the talking sections give these songs like just amazing context to
the black behind. You're talking about the black behind.
Okay, well, I guess that one. But like, I feel like with Man in the Dark Sedan, like the fact that like that follows immediately after just Randy's depression regarding the great Snakefinger, like really hits hard. And the same thing for, say, like Intermission Marching to the Sea. Like, he talks about how meaningful Marching to the Sea is, that metaphorical Marching to the Sea, and then that last line of the song, life would be so perfect if we all could be helpless, hopeless creatures just marching to the sea. It like really hits hard. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it makes it all a little more impactful.
And then also like the way that they end on that, and then the encore is Deadwood,
and Santa Dog.
Yeah, Santa Dog, then followed by Deadwood. That captures, I think, in a very succinct way, the perfect irony of the existence of the Residents. They're both continuing on endlessly, but also aspirational in some way. You know, there's always something that they wish they could be. It's like that in the inclusion of Deadwood. I feel like it gives us insight into the way, like, having to contend with making yourself firmly not anything, but then always being received, by people who want you to be something, who want to define you when you refuse to be defined.
Also, they did Die Stego during Talking Light, so it was like a continuation of that, because Deadwood has these sort of like chords of Die Stego.
Bob's playing in Die Stego there, like, yeah, man.
Bob's playing in general.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Bob shines like a star. That's why there's a Randy, Chuck, and Bob trilogy. It's so we can focus on
true.
Bob.
It's really, like, we call it the Randy, Chuck, and Bob trilogy, so we don't hurt anybody's feelings, but really it's like Bob's Special Day trilogy.
And
Randy, Chuck trilogy.
To have characters
mostly,
also makes
it's just Bob, so...
It makes it fun and cute. This is the cutest the residents, like, have gotten up until this point.
Look at that sweet boy. Look at that sweet boy and his sweet boy guitar. And you
Like,
tell
and
me
the eyeballs
you don't have
are already
heart.
cute, so that's saying something.
Yeah,
I
they're
love
really
those
cute
eyeball
here.
boys.
Like when Chuck and Bob play together in those brief periods on one of weird... Oh, it's so cute.
One of the trilogies, is it? Or was it all three of them, or is it just one where they bow to each other before each
Oh, they did that for everyone.
They did Peekaboo.
Okay,
Peekaboo.
that's what I thought.
And also the part in Wonder Weird when Randy's all depressed and then Chuck goes up to him with King Dong, and it's so cute.
It's so cute.
They love each other. They're just three masked men who love each other.
And they're all
yeah. It adds like they're all.
Randy's wearing a mask.
No. He puts on makeup so it looks like it's a mask, but it does add to that idea that they're all supposed to still be friends, like human friends. They're not just performers.
Unless they're performing friendship.
It's a friendship from performance.
How do we know that at the end of the day they don't all just go home and they're like, well, another day done. Get away from me, Randy, you big smelly loser.
It's interesting that you bring that up because it works as I think probably as a good segue into talking about Shadowland, which is where there's this collision, I think, of I mean you're making these members separate characters, and once you give them like a hard edge, they can move. They're alive. They can do things in their own way. And so Shadowland, the third part of the trilogy, unfortunately, that is a part of it because like Chuck stops touring here, which is a shame because his outfit was like really really cute. Oh my god, he looked great.
He had like the sparkly goggles too, didn't he?
Sometimes too long ago, mute cat and rabbit of their microphones I'd like to reach through and grab it. And when the hosts get so far off topic, it's the editor's job to jump in and stop it.
Like Randy over this period of time becomes his own character. I mean, there's the Tumblr, and then there's Randy Land, where it's just Randy's life, and what a life it is.
Okay, I have some opinions on Randy Land.
Say it.
Those opinions are that Randy Land is very good, and I love it. And
yeah, I think those are correct.
I think, like most people, I think watched it. But I think people are still sleeping on Randyland.
Oh, they are.
Yeah. No, I think people are kind of sleeping on Randyland because, like, I think a lot of people just sort of saw it as the residents sort of goofing off.
But it's not. It has a plot.
It does, and they're saying something important.
And what is it, Mew? What are they saying?
I love you.
Save that for a Randy episode.
Oh, I was gonna say there's the precursor series. I think it was just titled "In My Room," and somehow Randy managed to make him sitting in his room more entertaining than most stuff I've seen on YouTube.
Oh, absolutely. I think about it as a natural continuation of what the residents have been doing for literal decades. In fact, it's a return to form. Because in the same way that the commercial album is a reflection of the really of the mainstream world at the time, Randyland functions in that exact same way.
Yes.
Because, I mean, is that not exactly where we are now? It's a prediction. It was a prediction, and it came true.
Randyland it's a vlog series. It's like
It is a vlog
parody
series.
vlog. Okay, he sells his merch on the vlog. He
He
realizes
tells people about what merch he's going to have. He talks about how he's going to have a GoFundMe. It's exactly
okay.
a vlog. He's Trisha Paytas.
Okay, because here's the thing: it has like the arc of a vlog where like he just starts like being himself.
Oh my God! There's
and
even
then-
the paranormal things.
And then an incident happens, like an actual incident. The alien abductions like actually happened to him, kind of. But like that wasn't his doing. And then he was like, "Hey, that was like an exciting arc in my vlog." So then when he manufactures the Bigfoot stuff to like keep having content on his vlog and then to sell merch. I bought his vlog merch. I have Bigfoot Beware.
Oh, yeah.
It is the it's everyday bro or whatever that
Oh, God.
What?
Jake Paul song
Am I
really
too old
hoping
for
that
this
was not
now?
going to come out.
of
every day?
of the Resonance. It's Jake Paul.
Oh, isn't that guy? Who took
Yes,
the picture?
yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but
that's my take on Randyland. There we go. In this essay, I will. Thank you for coming to my TED Talks.
So Shadowland, that was the first Residence tour that I saw. Oh my God. Randy spat on me a little bit. It was really cute. He blows raspberries.
That was cute. That was cute.
Yeah, it was cute. It was cute. Because he's really funny, and then Bob's really tall.
Shadowland was the first Residence concert that I stood in line for.
This is a message to everybody. Go see the Residence. Like, you're gonna tell yourself, oh, it's fine. I can wait. No, you can't. You go see the Residence. I mean, here there's a continuation of what we sort of saw a little bit of at Talking Light, which is those stories, based around the theme. That, I mean, Randy sort of occupied that role in Wonder of Weird, but here it comes back, and I think these are some of the most like beautiful like videos the Residents have ever produced. I think as a fan base, we had a lot of fantastical ideas about how it would come to bear on later works. I for one thought the engineer was going to be a part of the Ghost of Hope because I don't know why.
Trains.
It's about trains.
It was about a train crash. Okay, like clearly, that's what I was when I saw the recording afterwards because I didn't get to see the concert. Like I was just like, oh, okay, this is cool. It's like they're showing us the future too, and that's like going to be in the Ghost of Hope or Trainwreck by God or whatever it was going to be called back then. And then it didn't. Honestly, I had so many things I was expecting to be Ghost of Hope related that ended up not being Ghost of Hope related, which I guess was cool because that meant the album was a surprise. But yeah.
But come
This
on,
is a
man.
bit of a sidetrack, but there was a lot they were gonna do for Ghost of Hope, weren't they? Like they were gonna do
Oh
videos.
yeah,
like,
all
for
sorts
a
of
bunch-
videos, all sorts
Oh,
of
yeah.
fantastical ideas, but it's simply not Freak Show. Nothing will ever be Freak Show. They have too many ideas.
They have high hopes, but not very much.
They got high horses.
Speaking of Shadowland,
Yes.
the thing that they would for their second American phase of the Shadowland tour, that was sort of in conjunction with Theory of Obscurity.
Ah, yeah. Let's talk about the movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
That's like the only like movie / documentary I've watched where it felt like it was way shorter than it was. 'Cause I just
Yeah.
I thought you were about to say that was the only movie you've ever watched, and I was about to say, I wish I was you.
I've only ever seen the Residents documentary and Cats, but I think I've got most of,
I
film
don't wanna
history
see
covered.
Cats.
That's actually what they teach you in film school. They just teach
Yeah.
you Theory of Obscurity and Cats 2019. I don't really know what they did before the 2010s, but I guess we sat there and thought about what movies might be like if you're allowed to watch any.
But yeah, Theory of Obscurity. What a crazy. It's crazy that happened. It's absolutely insane that happened.
It's almost sort of the like culmination of the sort of retrospective mood that this decade had.
Yes,
because I feel like that's a major theme of this decade.
Oh, absolutely. This whole
is
I feel
that
like the whole...
retrospective. Not to say that the residents have never done retrospectives before the 2010s. They've done it so many times, including with Santa Dog, with Icky Flicks, basically everything ever. But
it feels like they do it like every decade at this point.
But like with the 2010s, that was definitely a major theme. Whereas with other retrospectives, it's just sort of a thing, a project in the decade, you know.
Yeah, but like the Randy, Chuck, and Bob trilogy, the retrospective aspect was the focus for quite a while, and it took on a life of its own in a way that I think, like with Icky Flicks, for example, it really didn't, because that one featured like new works, and it just really wasn't the same. There's a groundwork there that they later that sort of precedes what we know now, but it's not the same kind of creature that all of this is, and the fact that it culminates in a documentary is like crazy.
And the thing about the retrospectives of the 2010s, I'm jumping the gun a lot here, but like it's even after, you know, the Randy, Chuck, and Bob trilogy with things like the Preserved series, and also the thing that you didn't put on the list for some reason, I Am a Resident.
That's because I forgot.
It's because people are sleeping on that album. It's just a theme of the decade, really.
Yeah.
I think Theory of Obscurity is definitely very good.
I think that the method of using this, I guess the vehicle of having Randy as a aging rock star, it's very, I think, more meta, I suppose, than their other reflections, because it's literally them looking back on their career. Almost.
Oh yeah, while their career is ongoing.
Exactly.
Which is
their reflection is like they I think not fancy them. They are, or if they have been the same group of people, then they are themselves starting to age just a bit, I'd imagine.
And with the Theory of Obscurity, it was more of a just sort of documentary played straight, because it was made by other people, with help by the residents. But you know, unlike say what was that Laserdisc 20 Twisted Questions?
Yeah, 20 Twisted Questions. Which
is basically like the only other like residents documentary outside of like YouTube videos.
Yes.
Is like 20 Twisted Questions definitely feels like it was a residence production first and foremost.
And this feels like a regular old documentary.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what it was made as rather.
Yeah. And it's interesting to have such a conventional format applied to the residents. And I used to misunderstand really what it was about. You know, I felt sort of as though their capacity to experiment was overlooked. But what it was, I think, was pointing at this vast web of things and looking at all the stuff the residents are connected to, as though there's this Vanta Black blind spot in our culture to the residents, because they're like a fungus. I mean, Les Claypool makes that same comparison, but I'm taking it to a different end. Because the mycelium, I think it's the brain of a fungus essentially operates entirely underground, and that's what makes them so huge. They are absolutely massive, and what we see come up on the surface are the fruiting bodies. That's how it spreads, but that is not the bulk of it. And I think the residents essentially function in the same way.
I like how you said we were going to skip mushroom, and here we are.
I accidentally started talking about mushrooms.
I would like to say, in regards to the whole, retrospective thing over the whole decade, I like the kind of like sudden like switch in pacing of it, because in the first half, we had the tours and stuff, but that was relatively just really about it in terms of all of this retrospective aspect. But then in the second half, you have the Preserve series, you have I Am a Resident, you have
Yeah,
They
let's
have
get into that.
purpose
Let's
for it.
get into that because